Thank you for having me, and please come in, sit down. Feel free to come closer in the middle. If we can, I would like to make this an interactive session and have you all be part of it. This is one of the talks that will focus more on community as opposed to the nitty-gritties of compilers, because I myself don't really know much about compilers, but I know a lot about community. And this talk within community will focus on community metrics, kind of in high level because we only have 20 to 30 minutes. So before I deep dive in, let me share a little bit about myself so you get a little bit of context of what I know about community. I work as Director of Community at the Open Infrastructure Foundation. Our foundation is an independent nonprofit, and we are supporting open source software development communities more in the software infrastructure space. You can imagine open source cloud platform, container runtime, and these type of projects. I joined the Open Infra Foundation 7 years ago, but I've been an active contributor to various open source communities for 10 years now. Well, over 10 years. Ooh, scary long number, big number. So I have some experience with community, and the largest project of the Open Infra Foundation is 13 years old. Not quite as big of a number as the Linux kernel, but it is still quite very significant. So our organization also has a lot of experience in terms of helping and assisting a community through growth, inception, adoption, and all these kind of things that you want for a community to have. And we have other projects as well, and one of those I am the community manager of. So I have a lot of focus on community. And in this talk, I will try to give you a big picture in terms of what to think of when you're thinking about community metrics and measuring things about your community. So we will start with looking into the aims and challenges that open source communities have, and then a little bird's eye view on metrics, and then I will talk about an open source project that is called CHAOSS. The session title was referring to this project, which is in fact focusing on community health analytics and metrics and tools around those. And I have a few examples in terms of things that me and my colleagues are looking into when we are working with our communities, but the examples are just a very tiny subset of what we do. So don't take it as a comprehensive list. So first off, open source communities, aims and challenges. A few keywords here, starting with success, because in my experience, it really depends like how you are being part of a community and how your community operates. It really depends on how you define success, how the community defines success, and how you as an individual participating in that community defines success. What do you want to achieve? Do you want the technology mission to be done? Do you want that mission to evolve and then take it further? Is success to have a stable release cadence that you can always keep? Is it success to have your user base grow, and how big do you want them to grow? And as an individual, is it success when you can easily and efficiently participate? Is it success when you can help others to come and join and participate? What it is that you consider as a successful community? And another key word that kind of feeds into success is sustainability, because once you have a project that does have a community around it, people want that to be sustainable. You want to keep it around. You want to be able to collaborate together, and you want to do that over an extended amount of time. And when it comes to sustainability, it has a lot of factors. And for that, it is very important that you're able to measure and look into certain things about your community to make sure that you can keep up the processes. If a process doesn't work, you can change it. So really making the community an environment that is sustainable. Growth. Now, who would guess if it's an aim or a challenge? Who thinks it's an aim? Like you want growth. Okay, we have a few people, but they were they were a little concerned. So who thinks it's a challenge? Okay, we have almost 2/3 of the room who thinks it's rather a challenge. I think it's both. I think it's a blessing and a curse. But when it comes to growth, especially if you have rapid growth, that can paralyze your community very fast if you're not careful in terms of how the community grows, how you welcome new contributors. If you're not able to figure out, again, if the onboarding processes are working, then you might find yourself in a really big trouble. And burnout is the last keyword that I wanted to mention, kind of also reflecting back to yesterday's keynote, because burnout in open source communities is very real. And it is for multiple reasons. One is the just the usual people who are really passionate about things, they put a lot of effort and energy into what they do. And when it comes to open source, people often have a day job, and open source contribution hopefully is somewhat part of it, but it's very easy to just go outside of the regular work hours and still finish that patch, still review a few things, and put way more time and energy into your work than you originally planned. Because again, open source communities usually consist of a group of people who really truly care about the project. And when it comes to people who are maintaining a project, you often find, if again you look into metrics, that you have a rather smaller subset of people who carry the majority of the burden and activities that's happening in a community. So you want to make sure that the community takes care of those people, helps them to delegate things, and making sure that they don't take everything on themselves, because then burnout will become a big issue if they experience that. Now, these were just a few kind of hopefully eye-opening examples in terms of what to think about when you're thinking about community health and community metrics. Because I'm talking very slow, I will talk about these questions with you after the talk, but please think about what you want, how you're defining success, and what the challenges are in your community, because that will define what you want to learn about that community. So hopefully in this case, the LLVM community, but if you're participating in other open source communities, these things apply there as well. Whether you're a casual contributor or a maintainer, this is something that you need to always keep in mind. So metrics, friends or enemies? What do you all think? Now, I very often meet with two kinds of people who love metrics and data, and people who are like, just leave me alone with that stuff, please. So who loves metrics and data? Okay. Good chunk, more than half. I think it was at least 2/3. Anyone who hates metrics and just doesn't want to? Okay. Awesome. We have a few people. Don't be shy. It's okay. I'm personally often conflicted in terms of which group I belong to. So don't feel bad, whichever answer you were closer to. Now, I think this slide is more for the people who said they love it. Because the truth is that data can get dangerous, because if you're looking at just the data and expecting the data to tell you something, it can very easily mislead you, it can overwhelm you, and you will probably get something very different out of it than what you were hoping for. Because data is not really meaningful if you don't have context around it. Like, you can have as many metrics as you want, but if you don't have a question that you want to answer, if you don't have a challenge that you want to solve, then data can very easily become your enemy here. And that is something that you always have to be very, very mindful of. I often see examples where people are collecting data about everything, because we are living in a world where where we are both data-driven as well as we have access to infinite amount of data. But it is often very hard to extract the information out of that data set. So it's just a little warning that context is always very important, and always be mission-driven when you look at data and metrics. I brought an example, which is GitHub stars, which has been kind of very popular metric very often. Now, on one hand, GitHub is not the only place to do open source. Many of the open infra projects are using Git and Gerrit and Gitty and other tools and platforms to do code review and collaborate. And at the same time, if your project is not on GitHub and you don't have 1 million GitHub stars, then what are you doing? Which is a misconception. And I think that this sort of metric really shows well how easy it is to turn metrics into a popularity contest, a competition about something like who's the most active contributor based on the number of commits. And if the person is the most active based on number of commits, what does that actually mean? Very often it doesn't really mean anything. They either have very little changes and a lot of them, or maybe they are one of the people who are those maintainers who might burn out, but just from that one number of there on the top of that list, you don't know. So again, you have to put that context around it. Now, if you need help with figuring the metrics landscape out, 20 minutes is obviously not enough, so I'm pointing you to a project that is having that mission of helping the open source ecosystem to figure it out, and giving examples, defining metrics models, working on open source tools that you can use to collect and visualize and analyze metrics. So that is what the CHAOSS project is doing. And this community, we're also doing a lot of education around, how to use metrics. So I did not even try to include examples, but you do have links on the previous slide, many slides, and I will have a collection of links at the end where you can go and figure out more things in details in terms of what metrics the community defined already. They always have, that starter question that you can use for a particular metric that can give you context in terms of when I might use this metric and how this will be useful for me. And the metrics always have a definition and also have examples of usage. And the link points to all the metrics. I think we have around almost 90 metrics defined, and that can range from activity, like the commits, the reviews, also things like the diversity, equity, and inclusion metrics and data, like I think it was yesterday at the very beginning of the keynotes where you saw the diagram, like where people were coming from to this conference. That is a data point that is always very interesting to learn, which regions are more active and who has access to, for instance, coming to a conference like this. And at the same time, you can also compare that to the overall demographics of the community and figure out how to help those people and people in those regions where, for instance, coming to a conference like this may not be that accessible. So you can use that data in a lot of ways, and you can find these kind of metrics, type of metrics, in the CHAOSS inventory. And beyond metrics, the community also has been working on metrics models, which is something that takes metrics a step further or 2 steps further in terms of how you combine metrics, how you use them together, what is your use case, and really giving you a more detailed case study type of example in terms of, okay, what do I do now that I have that almost 90 metrics? What do I actually do with them in my community? How do I ask the right questions that will lead me to the actions that I would like to take? And I am personally not involved in the software projects, but I wanted to list them in case you either want to try them out, or maybe if you like them, you might also want to get involved in the community. Again, the link to to more information is on the slide. So I would like to encourage all of you and those who might be just watching this talk after the event to go and check it out. And still have a little time left. So some examples, but it's really just a tiny bit of crumbles in terms of what you might look into. The first one, I don't have the community name here. It's not really important. This diagram shows commits over time, and if you ask me, I usually never look at the vertical. Yes, the vertical, the commits, the actual number, because I don't think that the number in itself is giving me meaningful information. What I like to look at though is trend over time. Like if you see that the number of commits is going down and it is a stable trend, then you might start to scratch your head and figure out what that means. Like, is there a blocker? People are not able to contribute for some reason. Are people leaving the community? If they are leaving the community, why that might be happening? And again, this is just an indicator where you need to go and take action and figure out the reasons why things are happening. Like my question is, what happened in the middle? And I'm not sure if you can see the numbers. I mean, the date on the bottom of the slide, but that little valley in the middle is COVID. This is when COVID hit, and I think when the decline starts is like 2020, May, June, July, when we were deep down in the lockdowns. Everybody's trying to figure out how to live life in that new environment that's just nothing like we've ever experienced before, and that obviously shows in the contribution data as well. So you can see how much time this particular community needed to kind of bounce back. And when it comes to the start of the deeper part of the valley, you can also see that it's COVID and summer at the same time. So that's just making things even worse. But you can also see that the community climbed out of it, and there are higher intensity and lower intensity periods. You can usually match those to holidays, for instance, around the globe, as well as when a particular release is coming out. That's usually when everybody is running around like little squirrels and trying to make sure that everything actually works. But again, like if you're looking at trends, that's what will really give you information in terms of how the community activity is doing, and what you might want to be more mindful and conscious about. This is a slide that has Git, Gerrit, and the mailing list information on it, kind of a little combination where you can see where the community is collaborating. Like Gerrit is a review tool where the community is collaborating on, okay, someone uploaded a change for review, and that's where actually a lot of discussion happens. So it's not always the mailing list or the chat tool. Gerrit, I think, is just as much of a social platform as the mailing list. Because again, a lot of conversations are happening there. This particular community is using Git and Gerrit for specifications, which is how the community is proposing new, bigger changes and feature ideas. So again, a lot of communication is going in there. But you can also see that this particular community is very active on the mailing list. And if you come to the conclusion that the mailing list is a good place to show up and start a conversation, I can tell you that you are absolutely right. Because those big yellow spikes are in fact the mailing list activity, and beyond the weekly calls, the mailing list is what the community is using. And one of the reasons is that it is a global community. So when it comes to dealing with time zones, mailing lists are still one of the better tools that can at least try to keep everybody involved and having kind of an equal opportunity to participate in a conversation. Because when you're relying on chat tools and meetings, not everybody can make those for whatever reason. And anyone has a guess why there might not be yellow spikes on the, I think, right-hand side of the diagram. Anyone has any guesses where those little yellow lines went? Sorry? Kind of. We migrated to a new version. So if anyone was thinking that, maybe the community's not liking the mailing list after all, that's not the case. It is actually a tooling issue. But I wanted to ask the question just to kind of show that context matters. So Pipermill still works. The mailing list works perfectly. But we haven't fixed it in the metrics tool yet to show the new emails. So that is, again, if someone is not knowledgeable in terms of what's in the background, it is very easy to maybe come to the wrong perception, like thinking that maybe I will not go to the mailing list after all because it must be broken. It's not broken at all. Just the data didn't make its way into the diagram, which I just realized as I was putting together the slides, although the migration just happened. Now, here's another one that also shows a trend over time since the inception of this particular community. This one shows community structure in the sense of involvement. So you can see that there's a color for core contributors, regular contributors, as well as casual contributors. Now, if you look into this diagram, then you probably think that we can all just, sit back and relax because this has overall a steady growth. And you can see that the COVID period shows up here too, a little bit, but not as prominently as with the commits. So that probably tells you that that people didn't really go away. They were just able to contribute less because of all the things that were going on at that time. Now, the stable growth is great. Like having the both core and regular contributors, those groups growing, that is also pretty great. But what this diagram does not show you is any type of diversity, like organizational diversity, geographical diversity, gender diversity. So even though this diagram in itself shows that the community is doing great, you might still have a lot of work in terms of making sure that the community is inclusive and diverse, because that is one of the key points when it comes to sustainability, for instance, for open source communities. This one I really like. I was working with a different metrics tool, and that had this feature and displayed in a little different way. But this shows time zones when people are active, so you can get a sense of which are the regions where people who are most active are residing. And you, like, if you're using the mailing list, you see which are the time periods when people will most likely respond to you. And if you're not in that time zone, then you know that you have to be a little bit more patient, because people who know the answer are still sleeping or just already left work for that day. And on the other hand, you can also look into this kind of information to figure out how to make a particular region a little bit more active, to make sure that you actually have a regional community and you have people who can help each other and work with each other in order to be able to contribute efficiently. And I think this will be my last one. that is a different, I think it's from a different community. But anyway, this one is an organizational diversity slide or diagram. And this one is usually nice to look at, because what you really want for your communities to be able to depend on multiple organizations, so that you're not in the risk of one organization walking away and then your community collapses. So in open source communities where you have a lot of commercial organizations involved, diversity, organizational diversity is something that is very, very important. So if you have that low, that is something that you might want to put some efforts into figuring out how to increase. And oh no, I have one more. But this one is the commits versus authors diagrams. I wanted to display the two together to kind of show that even when you have like a little drop in the authors, that is probably more the casual and maybe some regular contributors as well, because if you see the other diagram above, the activity didn't really go that significantly down. So this is another interesting diagram comparison. I think that again shows to look trends over time and also combine multiple metrics in order to get the information out of the data. And the resources slide, I will not talk about this, just I think the slides will be shared afterwards. So you should have access to all these links. And I think I have like maybe 1 minute for a question.
Yeah, we can take 2 questions. So if you guys want to come to the mics.
So for metrics, one of my pain points is like, sure, you can use all these tools to get things out of other software systems, but when you want to get the real stuff that's not in these tools, how do you get people to like fill out surveys and provide the information that you need? Because you could ask really great questions, but how do you get people to do it, to fill it out?
Excellent question. We do a lot of surveys, although at least what our organization is doing, our surveys are more tailored towards users, for instance, like who are both using the software that the communities are working on as well as participating in the community. So we are trying to use the surveys for information that you can absolutely not get from tools. However, I know that tools exist today to show usage data, although I always feel like I'm being stalked when those are used. But when it comes to having people filling out surveys, in my experience, if you can keep it the shortest possible, is a great way to try to not discourage them. The other thing is, depending on which group you're targeting, just make sure to remind people on the channels where they are as much as you can. And if that is social media and X, which is the new Twitter, then go and find them there. So in my experience, you have to bug the people multiple times where they are. You have to find them where they are, and if that's the mailing list, then on the mailing list. If it's the chat tool, it's the chat tool. If it's a set of surveys that are really for the community and active contributors, if you have a leadership group, or at least I think there was a governance talk yesterday about the benevolent leader of the community, get them on board, and hopefully their influence will help the others to follow and provide that information that you're looking for. I'm hoping this is helpful.
Thank you, Ildiko. Appreciate everybody. Thank you. We'll resume in 2 minutes. So for the next talk.